Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, yes, I'm still on vacation. Yes, I'm trying to get the volume a little bit better in this video, and yes, it's an absolutely gorgeous day behind me. And we'll start out by talking about Nintendo GameCube and Wii emulation with Dolphin. And Dolphin has just released an amazing progress report. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. So this progress report is for December and January, and we've talked about a lot of this stuff on the channel already, but at the same time, it's amazing to see that Dolphin is still getting so much attention from the developers. They are putting in a ton of work on this emulator. For example, this one's currently a work in progress, but they're working on implementing sending mail from the Wii Mail system. Absolutely crazy. There's been a bunch of work done to DSP-HLE, which they say is just as accurate as DSP-LLE, but many times faster. If you are curious about this one, they've got a full YouTube video on it explaining exactly how it works and showcasing it. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. It's pretty interesting. They've also disabled arbitrary bitmap detection by default because so few games use it. There are some flagship games that use it, so for example, if you're playing something like The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, you may want to turn this on. The Dolphin team also found out some interesting stuff about the Steam Deck. It turns out Steam Deck users were experiencing inconsistent issues. Or rather, Steam Decks were experiencing issues inconsistently, if that makes sense. Apparently, some of the older models of the Steam Deck, like the one I have, were experiencing stuff like double inputs, whereas some of the newer versions of the Steam Deck, including the Steam Deck OLED, were not. The Dolphin team ended up reaching out to the legendary developer Ndrift, who you may know from MGBA and a whole bunch of other stuff, to help out, and yes, she was able to help them fix it. And on top of all of that, Dolphin now supports custom resolutions. Use this wisely though, because you can easily stretch your game without even realizing it, or maybe realizing it if you know what the game is supposed to look like. And they end the report with a quick note for NVIDIA GPU users. So if you've got an NVIDIA GPU and you have the latest drivers, and you're using DirectX 3D11, you may be experiencing some issues. This is a known issue within Dolphin, so if you have an NVIDIA GPU, stay away from DirectX 3D11 for now. The Dolphin development team had an amazing December and January, and I can't wait to see what's next. Again, check out that progress report. Next up, we're talking about TechnoParrot, and it appears that TechnoParrot was the target of a hack and phishing. I'll drop a link to their Twitter in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out if you do use TechnoParrot. There's a lot of great information there that'll tell you exactly what's going on and what to do next. So at a high level here, they've been having some issues with Patreon, and some of their patrons have been getting phishing emails suggesting they buy Bitcoin. It appears that TechnoParrot is trying to get an investigation started, and it also appears that TechnoParrot is trying to get legal action started against Patreon. Based on everything I've seen, it appears that the folks over at TechnoParrot are doing their best to make sure everything gets restored and resolved very quickly. But at the same time, if you do use TechnoParrot, again, take a look at their Twitter. There's a lot of great information there. Next up, we're talking about Sega, and it appears that Sega had a bad financial quarter, and they're blaming it on poor video game sales. You know what they're not blaming it on? Piracy, because a lot of their new games have de novo. In my opinion, and this may be unpopular, but I've always felt that piracy was used as a scapegoat, as an excuse for poor sales. We'll see how things go moving forward for Sega. I mean, Like a Dragon is doing extremely well. Moving on, and we're quickly talking about Nintendo DS emulation with Melon DS. And Melon DS just got a brand new update you may be interested in. Now to be specific here, this is for Melon DS on Android, and if you are using Melon DS on Android, you might want to check out the latest development release. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, but it now supports internal resolution. So if you wanted to crank up the graphics and make things look a little better at the cost of performance, you now can. And speaking about Android, next up we're quickly talking about EmuDeck on Android. And it appears that the EmuDeck on Android beta has just dropped on their Patreon. Now if you support EmuDeck on Patreon, you'll have access to this early beta. It's still an early beta, it's still a work in progress. But at the same time, this may represent something a lot bigger for emulation on Android. As soon as it gets a public release, I'll let you know. Moving on, and we're talking about Starfield on PS5. And we talked about this one the other day when there was a pretty big rumor that Microsoft was bringing Starfield to the PlayStation 5. Well, Nate the Hate, who was the source of this rumor, tweeted out a correction saying that they were incorrect. Starfield is not headed to the PS5. And based on comments that I've seen, it doesn't really seem like a lot of people are upset about it. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Were you excited about Starfield potentially headed to PS5? Or are you kind of just over the game at this point? And speaking about being over stuff, next up we're quickly talking about the Florida Joker and Grand Theft Auto 6. And if this is true, well, it's interesting. It appears that the Florida Joker is over their attempts at trying to sue GTA 6 for their likeness in the game. And they're also saying that they should be voicing the Florida Joker character in GTA 6 because basically they're the reason that the game is so hype. I guess this is another one of those, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Next up, this one actually really surprised me. It appears that the court ruled in favor of protecting the privacy of Reddit users who made comments about piracy. I'll drop a link to the full article in the description below and feel free to check it out. It's super interesting. It all boils down to stuff about the First Amendment right and also a few other things. Realistically here, I thought the corporations were going to win for sure, but it's surprising to see that Reddit has stood tall. And last up here, this is more of just a heads up. I'm running out of time when I can actually record, and I'm trying to keep the video size down so I can actually upload this. But in the next video, we're going to be talking about Citra, Yuzu, Ryujinx, and even more. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.